Hey there, I hope you're doing good. It's my other pour that I'm doing on Christmas Eve day, and my husband is working from home and the house is quiet, so I decided to come into the studio and do some painting. I wanted to do something a little bit Christmas inspired. I did a flower last year. I called it the Big Bold Flower. If you look on Sandra Lett and you just do big bold, it'll take you back to this flower that was not intended to look like a poinsettia, but it kind of did. And so I thought, well, why not kind of do a poinsettia pour? So if I put on some clean gloves, that should alleviate my problem. But I'm going to use this is a Wilton Easy Glide icing and fondant spreader. And I'm going to spread my black paint, which is Artist Loft Flow Acrylic. And I'm going to, it's mixed 1-to-1 with Oatrol Easy Flow. All of my colors are. So here is the Oatrol Easy Flow that I use, which is fabulous. It's like Floetrol, but it's a European version. The company is very gracious to send me free product, and it's available at oatrolusa.com or on Amazon in my recommendations link. And so everything is mixed 1-to-1, and then water is added if needed, but I'm using Deco Art paints, and typically Deco Art paints are fluid enough to where you don't really have to have water added to it. Usually the craft bottle paints are pretty fluid in the bottle just as they are. So this is a great little tool right here just to quickly spread your paint around. I'm not always worried about being perfectly leveled or glass-like or anything like that. I just spread it around, make sure I have enough on the surface of the canvas, and then I'll also take it around the edges of the canvas. That way your black paint is cohesive on the top as well as the sides, because black canvases, the ones I get from Michaels, are kind of a really flat black, and this Artist Loft black is so much more black. It's a deeper black. It dries flat looking, but if you don't use the same black on your sides as you do on the surface, you will be able to tell a difference. So I just like to, I'm making a mess. I'm really messy today for some reason. So if you have bubbles in the surface of your paint, you can take your heat gun, heat torch, and just pop them really fast. But you don't want to dry the surface of that paint, you're just popping bubbles. You can also just blow on it. This is an 18 by 24 canvas, so it's pretty good sized. And the last time I did this pour, I used squeeze bottles for everything. And I have these huge cups of paint left over from 2 weeks ago, a week and a half or so ago, from classes of Deco Art paints. And I want to go ahead and start using them, but they're all in cups, and it's always harder to pour with cups. I'm just letting you know that. And I'm also pulling out my plastic scrapers. I've got a large and a medium. Because this is a larger canvas, I'm going to kind of try to go larger scale. And I have my credit card to scrape with. I've got my palette knife. I've got some other little plastic palette knives and a straw. So the first thing I did on my last painting like this was I did the leaf part first. Oh, and let me show you, everything I'm using is the Deco Art Americana. It'd be great not to drip paint on it. Deco Art Americana, Lamp Black, Brilliant Purple mixed with a little bit of a periwinkle blue. I've got a magenta, a true red, a bright orange, burnt sienna, dioxazine purple, cadmium yellow, titanium white, festive green with some evergreen mixed into it, festive green with some sour apple added to it. I've got a forest green. So what I'm going to start with is some leaves, and I'm going to do just different layers of leaves. So I'm going to take this blue-green color, and I do have silicone in these colors as well. And this is going to be so much harder to do pouring from a cup, that we're going to attempt to do it just so I can show you that it's just as difficult for me to do it sometimes when you're not using a cup. When you're not using squeeze bottles. So I'm kind of starting with the bluish green in the center, and then I've got this deeper, it's like a festive green that I'm pouring on either side. Now I'm going to take this brighter light green. The black does not have silicone in it. Whoa, got way too much there. I'm going to try to take some of that off because that is just way too much. Now, I want just a little bit of yellow, not much, and I'm going to use my squeeze bottle on that because I just want a little tiny bit of yellow. And there's no way I can get just a little tiny bit of yellow to come out of my cup. And so now I'm going to use my scraper, and I think I'm going to use the middle-sized one, not the largest. So, and I'm also, after you scrape, you wipe your tools off to keep them clean and not dirty them up. So I'm going to scrape and wipe. And I'm trying to kind of go from the center of the leaf. And so you can even do it like layered looking. And this paint is pretty thick, so it's going to take a lot of wiping off. But you can you can squiggle it a little bit to make it look like different layers of the leaves. So I keep lots of damp paper towels around. So I'll start down here this time. And you also, my cups are in the way, you also need to make sure you don't have anything in the way where you're swiping, because if your hand hits that cup or whatever, it's going to stop you in your tracks where you're swiping. So I'm going to start back at the top here again. So now I'm going to start kind of with what would be the first petals that go on the flower. So they're going to be the furthest away, and then the ones coming towards you on the top will be the closest. So I want those under petals, the darker, them to be darker. So I want the under petals to be darker. So what I'm going to do is just pour a little bit, and this is going to be multi-layered. So I'm going to do like a puddle of purple. And I'll try to do about 5 petals. And I'm trying to make them a little wider from the center, and then they would come out to a point, but we'll just see how this goes. And I'm going to throw in a little bit of this burnt sienna color. I don't know if I mentioned that in the colors, but I want a little bit of a deeper color. This would be a rusty color. So I'm putting a little bit of that. And this is a lot of paint, so this is going to be really wet. And now I want a good amount of red. And I'm going to try one out before I go in much further here. Get my paper towel ready to wipe off my swiping tool. That's probably not wide enough. So let me try one. So when you swipe over a lot of thick paint, it's going to puddle. It's going to do a puddle really quickly. So you have to kind of be ready to catch your drips, because you don't want to drip over everything that you've already done. And so that's doing good, pretty good. And I don't want actually a lot of cells either. So I'm going to try to do 2 sections. There's a lot of paint here. So these would be my deepest petals. I don't want to cover up all of my leaves, but some are going to overlap the leaves too. I'm going to broaden it out. So now I want these petals to kind of go over in between the deeper petals. I got a little drippy through there, so I'm just kind of dabbing that over the black, and that kind of takes that away. So this one, I want these petals to be a lot brighter. So I think I'm just going to I'll do a little yellow. So this just kind of shows you generically where I want the petals to be. And I'm going to put in a little bit of this rosy color, magenta, whatever color you want to call it. And then I'm going to do orange. And these are really full cups. And then I want the red on top. think I'm going to use the medium-sized scraper here again. And I really want them to kind of fan out. So that's why I kind of went out and then came back in. I'm glad there's not a lot of cells. I really didn't want a ton of cells either. Sometimes you just have to turn your canvas. And this is broader than my tray is here, so I'm going to try to do this really quick. Okay, so now I'll put it back down here the way it was. So now I got to decide if I want to keep working with this, because right now it doesn't really look like a poinsettia. It's still pretty nonetheless. So I think I want to broaden these petals here. So I'm going to drip a little bit more red. This is going to take days to dry for sure. And I think I'm going to use just my palette knife this time. Swipe through it. Clean off that black. And I'm going to cover that drip up right there that's on top of that petal. I got a red drip in my leaf there. So the leaves aren't real defined. I'm going to take a little bit of red and go over this yellow right here. And go right there. Cover this orange just a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to take black and put it here in the center. Just kind of splatter it out. I don't want it perfectly round. There's a lot of paint in the middle there. And then I'm going to take my squeeze bottles. And I think I'm going to do a little bit of the festive green. That one came out way too big. I'm going to take my sour apple. Just a little dot. So these are like little tiny puddle pores. These do have silicone, so they may seal up and they may not, which is okay. I just wanted a central part of the flower. I'm going to put a drop of orange. I want these to be colorful little puddles of color. Paint. Now, I'm going to do another drop of black because I don't want much of that orange to show. And I'm not trying to totally cover the orange with the black, I'm just trying to put a little dot. And then yellow. Let me see how the yellow looks. So it kind of doesn't show up as much, but I still want the yellow to be the ending color. Okay. Now, I want to do something about the leaves because the leaves have kind of spread out too much. They're not super formed. So I think I'm going to switch to my bottles. And I'm going to leave what's here already and just maybe do, let me see how one looks before I do all of them. Do the deeper green, the festive green, and the sour apple. Got this little palette knife here. I'm going to see how this does. And So I want more contrast. I need to add the yellow in. And I want to use my credit card, I believe, instead of that. So, but anyway, I'm going to do fillers. Just in certain areas. Now my credit card. Very lightly swiping. And this is going to be the smaller cells because it's in the squeeze bottles. And I kind of take my wrist and I kind of angle it a little bit to give that leaf a little bit of a pointed flip. So I could have put a thinner layer of black on the surface of the canvas to begin with, because the black is kind of thick on there, and that would have maybe helped a little bit. But like this is going to be, it's totally saturated with paint here, and I like that there's not a lot of cells. I didn't really want a lot of cells. I do want to add a highlight though in the purpley leaves of the flowers. I want to throw in a little bit of periwinkle. I just want to see what it looked like. And this is why you have to wipe off, is because it will continue to dirty up your paint. So I'm trying to decide if I like that or not. Let me try a little bit of that fuchsia with the periwinkle. Add a little purple, a little of the fuchsia, and a little bit of periwinkle. And I wiped my palette knife off each time I put a different color down, just to put a little bit of, a little hint. So it's not just straight out purple. This is supposed to be abstract. It's not supposed to look real. want that yellow there. So I think I like that little bit of pop there. And then I'm going to take my black squeeze bottle. I'm going to come back in and just add a little black right in these areas to separate the petals a little bit. And see, these are spreading out, but it kind of looks abstract and a little funky, and I kind of like that, so I'm not bothered by that at all. So I'm putting my palette knife a little bit in the green and a little bit in the lighter green. And just in a few areas, throw in a bright leaf. Okay, so let me see, like right here I want to bring my red around a little bit. I want to cover that green up right there. And a little bit on the abstract side, which is good. Because, you know, I do paint real, and I just like getting outside of the box of realism and going more abstract. So this is loaded with paint. Some really cool sections of it. Some cells popping up, which is nice. I can even take my torch go over the areas that, you know, were swiped with the different colors. There's even parts of this leaf here that are already drying. They've already dried where the black is in the center. So this part will dry really kind of quickly. And then this part, because it's thicker, will take probably a day or two to dry because of the cooler winter weather. So I just need to make sure it's on a flat surface, so that, you know, I don't lose everything I've got. And I'm just throwing in a little bit more of this leaf color here. To make sure that, you know, at least most of the leaves have some kind of a little bit of definition. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let me get over here, see if I can block that light right there. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Check out the links below, my PayPal, my Patreon page if you would like to contribute something. That would be greatly appreciated. There is an Amazon link with different products and recommendations, tons of them. And there is a link for Arteza paints. But this is these are Deco Art paints, and I'm really pleased with them. I just don't have, they're really thick because they've been sitting a while, and they don't have a ton of silicone. So that's why they're not selling up, and that's why I used these. I didn't want a ton of cells. So this worked out pretty perfectly on that spectrum. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Merry Christmas. Thank you.